Yiboneh, Yiboneh midrash, Yitzion, Yitzion, Yitzion temaneh. Yiboneh, Yiboneh, Yiboneh midrash, Yitzion, Yitzion, Yitzion temaneh. Neshama shir chadash.
Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Welcome back to the Yiboneh Beit Midrash. Welcome home to Torah. A very, very warm welcome home to Torah. For those who know, we've been using the Yakar from forever, from time immemorial. We're never bored. It never becomes dull. But we did a little bit of a shift in lanes, and we're using a sefer called Giborim, which is written by the very same Yakar. But he uses midrash and he discusses, as we always have, fundamentals in Judaism. So this is a good review, know the sources, and for those who are online and they want to follow along with the Hebrew source sheets, there's a link below in the description box, and I encourage you to follow along in the Hebrew. If you're interested in receiving the English source sheets, please shoot me an email. Just want to mention as well that we've been collecting money to buy and purchase tefillin for the Chayalim. And Yiboneh has donated 90 pairs so far, and we're collecting for the last 15. The last request was for 15 pairs. We have enough for just over 10 pair. We're still short. You know how expensive they can be. And for those online, if you want to donate, there's a link below. It's a big mitzvah. These are people who are in miluim mostly, or some of them are actually guys themselves who see religious people around them davening in the morning and want a pair of tefillin and have committed to put it on every day if they got a pair. So let's help them, and that's only going to help Am Yisrael be victorious in every front, in every way. Doing Torah and mitzvahs. Okay, so we're in Parashat Korach. There's a famous midrash that the Yakar, anytime I use the word Yakar, we're referring to the Giborim sefer, right? So the first thing the Yakar brings down in the Giborim is this famous midrash. If you look on Kuf Mem Chet, on the right side, okay, so Korach took, the Yikach Korach, he took. What did he take? Right? It doesn't say other than the 250 men and a few other guys. 253 people altogether. But there's this famous midrash that he took a garment full of a particular color called techelet. What color that is? Somewhere between blue and greenish. We don't know. We hope that we have it. I mean, some reverse engineering has taken place in the last, 100 years. In the meantime, if you look in the English source sheet, number 2. Actually, let's look at Rashi on Numbers chapter 16:1. That's where we are. That's how the Parsha of Korach begins in chapter 16:1. So Rashi says there, what did he do? He took himself to one side. We're going to discuss this. What does it mean that he took himself to one side? He disassociated himself in order to separate himself from everyone else. We had a little discussion today. I'm not going to mention any names, but when a consensus of rabbis say a certain thing, it's kind of like you really don't want to go against them. Okay, they don't have the same weight as their Sanhedrin. I get it, but Am Yisrael, we have leaders, we need leaders, and we need unity more than anything else. Amen. Okay, shalom goes over, it trumps truth sometimes, which is a very difficult pill to swallow, especially when we, and many of us are Balei Tshuva, right? We want truth, but sometimes, and if you're married, you'll understand this, that sometimes shalom, not sometimes, almost all the times, is going to trump, and I'm using that word intentionally, trumps truth. But anyway, so he took himself in order to disassociate himself from the congregation in order to contest the appointment of Aaron. So is it against Aaron or is it against Moses? Because who appointed Aaron? Moses did. So he wants to be the Kohen Gadol. He wants that position, but on a certain level, he's also he's making a claim, and we're going to see what it is shortly. So that's a very important Rashi. He separated himself in order to persist in a dispute. The Hebrew, we're going to use the word machloket, although Onkelos uses the word itpalag, which means to separate yourself. And we're going to see that later as well. Look at number 2, source number 2, Bamidbar Rabbah 18:3. So what did he take? The very last parsha in last week's, in other words, the last paragraph in last week's parsha was what? Tzitzis. So when it says he took, what did he take? He took tzitzis. Right? It's logical. That's what he took. He took tzitzis that was entirely a particular color called tchelis. And he wanted to know from Moshe Rabbeinu, is this garment, it's a four-corner garment, it's completely tchelis, does it still need an additional thread? He took an example of a house full of Sifrei Torah. Inside the Sefer Torah, you have this one little paragraph, or actually two, of the Shema, right? And he's asking Moses, if I have a house full of these Torah scrolls, which the mezuzah is part of, would I then need to put one on the doorpost? Now, I just want to regress just a little bit. The source for the idea that he took a garment full of techelos is because of last week's parsha, meaning there's a smichut, there's a close proximity, the adjacency of tzitzis to him taking. My question to you, and this is a little bit of unusual because I'm asking you questions here, where is the source that he had a complaint about the mezuzah? If you have a room full of svarim, would it be obligated in a mezuzah or not? So, in source number 3, this is what the Yakar in another place explains. If you look at number 16, verse 27, so they withdrew from around the dwelling of Korach, as they were told to. Das and Avram. And Das and Avram, what did they do? What does it say they did? It says, Yatzu nitzavim petach ahalehem. They went out, standing tall, at the entrance of their tents. There was this, an anger, there was a defiance that these two men had as they left the doorway of their tent. And look at Rashi on that. What does it mean they went out standing upright, nitzavim, in source number 3, with a haughty bearing, to curse and to blaspheme? Understand that the Yakar is claiming that this is where we understand they had a claim on the mezuzah, just like Korach had a claim on the chelis. They went out, what's by the entrance? The mezuzah. Now, on a certain level, we're going to see what was Korach's claim. Everyone's holy. You don't need a leader. You don't need one person to stand out. We're all holy. And you usurped that for yourselves, both Moshe and Aaron. You took that for yourselves. So in a certain sense, the Yakar explains somewhere else that what do these two things represent, the techelis and the mezuzah? It's supposed to remind you. Like, a store has a lead, I forget what it's called, but a leader, a lost leader, in order to bring you into the store. It guides you. The leader, right, in a tour group, has a little flag. You follow the flag, right? That's your compass, whatever it is. That's where you need to go. See where the flag. The leader is your guide. He's saying we're all guides. We're all holy. We don't need any reminder because we're so holy. If we're so holy, we need no reminder. It's only the people who are not holy that need reminders. But if you're all holy, you're all leaders. That is some background to what we're going to discuss as well. Okay, so let's now begin with, maybe I'll just read it in Hebrew real quick so you can see the midrash. V'yikach Korach, ma lochach, what did he take? Lochach talis shekulu tchelis, he took a talis that was completely tchelis. V'chein hilbish matayim v'chamishi mish, and he took with him 250 people, happened to be, most of them were from the tribe of Ruvain, v'hilbish sham kulam talitot shel tchelis, and he got them dressed up in this garment that was in completely this color. And he came before Moshe and he said, Talazeh chayevet b'tzitzis o patur. And he said the same thing about the rooms full of Sifrei Torah. Would it need a mezuzah or not? Okay, so let's now begin. Kavar hiskarnu Parshas v'yeshev. We already discussed in Parshas v'yeshev beganut midat hakina, jealousy. Kina is jealousy. It's very interesting because God himself is called a jealous God. And therefore, jealousy is not always negative. Most of the time it is, right? So, in the meantime, back in Parshas v'yeshev, that the Kli Yakar discussed the shameful aspect of this type of character trait. And it could be so harmful and so damaging, Ech shehimaka bilti trufa, that it really is self-consuming, that there's no cure. So self-consuming, shu'oicha basar zaro, that it's like you're eating your own arm. Can you imagine? It's self-consuming. It's so damaging and debilitating. Bekinato b'mala zulato, when you have this jealousy towards something else, towards another thing. Ad shemoitzi atzmo min ha'olam, until you remove yourself, you've been removed from the world. And we're going to see in Pirkei Avot, it actually says those words. Let's look at that first, and I'll explain it. It says in Pirkei Avot, it's number 4 in the source sheet, chapter 4, verse Mishnah 24. Rabbi Elazar HaKapor would say that envy, which is kina, we're going to jealousy, taiva, which is desire and lust, and hakavod, which is honor, and we'll see, it's a lot of haughtiness involved. So it removes a person from the world. What does it mean it removes you? You're there today and you disappear, you're no longer there? It means, think about your mind. Your mind is consumed. It's occupied, right? You're bothered. Listen to what the Kli Yakar says. Kvar mitzinu shekol al-chazim b'midazu nitradu min olam. That you're bothered, you're occupied, away from the world. You're not even in the present. Wouldn't that be great if we could be present, right? You're present, you're living your life to its fullest at the moment, but instead this person is living rent-free in your house, in your mind, in your body, in your soul. So that's what I think it means. You're not present. You have been removed from the world. And interestingly enough, the Kli Yakar brings down, what is the word af? Af means nose, but it also has a meaning of anger, right? But also it means also, however. Right? Look what he says here. He brings down in Bereshit Rabbah 19:2, look at number 5 on the source sheet, that basically there were 4 individuals, I'm not going to call them people, but there were 4 entities that spoke and used the word af. And you can see in number 5 what they actually did say, but because they opened their mouth with af, with anger, what happens? They were also consumed with anger. I'll read it in English. So by the snake, if you look in Genesis chapter 4, verse 1, so the serpent, well, let's just take about the 4. All 4 of these individuals, or actually I said entities, opened their mouths with af. And who were they? The serpent. And that's in Genesis chapter 4, verse 1. He said, did perhaps God say you shall not eat of the tree? So the word af was used. In Korach also. And that's in chapter 16, verse 14 in Numbers. He said, moreover, af, not to a land. Okay, Haman is the third who used the word af when he spoke to Esther. And who are we missing? The baker. So the baker, when he heard the dreams being interpreted by Yosef, he heard his dream, which was not such a good dream, interpretation, and the head of the winery, the head steward, what do you call him? The bartender. And he interpreted Yosef interpreted his dream positively, so there was a jealousy, and he used the word af. And of course, it didn't end well for him. So it didn't end well for any of these people that had anger, okay? And it was all based on jealousy. The anger comes as a result of jealousy. As the Yakar will explain, look down in the right side of the paragraph where he says, Dalet patchu ba'af, the kulam na'avdu. So there were 4 that opened their mouths with the word af, and all of them were taken out, so to speak. The Nachash, the serpent, the Oithe, the baker, Korach, which is our Parsha, and Haman. Gvar's Karnu, the Parshas V'yeshev, and he explained over there, Lefi Shekol Kanoi, who Bal Af V'chema V'kas. These are all different nuances or languages of anger. Af, Chema, and Kas. And they are someone who has this trait, which we are going to pray to God and do the best to stay away from this character trait. It doesn't end very well for them. And what is their real issue? They are Tami B'mas Hashem. They're angry with whatever happens, whatever Hashem meets out, right? And that is really everything that happens in the world, right? Stubbing your toe, coming to a red light, and losing money, right? Anything that Hashem does to them, they're going to be angry with. V'kol ma sharo b'chavera, and now this is the jealousy that we see amongst people. Anything that you see in your friend, ulo mekane v'kas v'tzara, and it's going to cause you a jealousy or an anger or some kind of pain. Lafikach hayasat techilas divreihem ba'af. So too, those 4 individuals, right? The snake and Korach and all these guys, Haman and the baker, they all opened their mouths with af, which is moira al midatam, which, you can really tell a lot about somebody the way they speak, right? Not just the way they look, not just the way they dress, but a lot about the way they speak, okay? The Ramaz leDevar Milat Kina. There's a hint to like an acronym, like moniker. I like Alicia's terminology. I think a moniker. The word Kina is spelled Kuf Nun Aleph Hey. So it's the Reishi Tevos. Kina means jealousy. And if you look at each letter, Kina is Korach, Kuf for Korach, Nun for the Nachash, Aleph for the baker, for the Oithe, and Hey for Haman. Ki Haman haya mekane b'Mordechai. We all know Haman was so jealous of Mordechai, wouldn't bow down to him. The Nachash was mekane ba'adam sheyisa chava. And for some reason, the snake was jealous because Adam had married his wife Chava. Oitha, and the baker was Mekana Besar Hamashka. He was jealous because of the steward, and the Shenipater lo Cholamo letoiva, because Yosef had interpreted the dream for good. The Korach Hayam Mekanim b'Moshe v'Aaron, and this we know, we just discussed it. He had this jealousy towards Moses and Aaron, ubima'alatam, and because of their status, where they were standing, they were elevated to a certain status. V'yadu she'ein adam mitkaneh ela begibur kamoto. We know that people do not become jealous for someone who is not on their level. They have to have some kind of camaraderie. They have to be on the same status or class or strength, as he says, some kind of equal balance, because we have this rule, ki ein hapachami mitkane b'melech. You're not going to have this lowly street cleaner or this guy who shovels coal into the ovens going to be jealous of the king. It's not going to happen. Zulat oson shehem b'madrega achas, except if you're on the same level, on some level, kenohek sheba'olam, like the way that's how the world works. Mitkanin zeh b'zeh, that's when you're going to have jealousy. The Gemara tells you that plumbers have jealousy for each other, right? There's this natural jealousy that people of the same, lawyers, they actually same profession. There's a natural jealousy, right? Except there is an example of rabbis. Right? You don't want to get on the rabbi's bad side. But it says the kinat sofrim is mar bechachma. Normally, you cannot open, let's say, a pizza store. If you need 100 families to maintain a pizza store, and you have a town that only has 100 families, a second guy cannot open a pizza store in the same town. But if you have 200 families, you could. Or, as the rule goes, if you make something different, you make a special calzone, you make salads, you make baked ziti, you're not just making pizza, so also you can. But when it comes, so you're not allowed to steal someone's parnasa, basically, by opening the same type of store. It comes to a school, however. So there's a difference, because let's say you need 50 children to make the school function. Guess what? You have 50 children, they all go to one school. You can open a school. You don't have any students. What's the point? You're going to make a better product, a better quality product, and now you're going to attract half the kids. So now the guy who's left only with 25, he better get on the ball and improve his, I don't know what you want to call it, but his goods, and get them back or increase, right? So the increase, it's going to increase wisdom. When you have competition by the rabbis, it should, theoretically, increase wisdom. If there's any jealousy that's on the negative side, in my opinion, it means he wasn't a rabbi to start with, because it says, Kinat Sofri Mar B'Chachma. So if it's not Mar B'Chachma, they're not a rabbi. Anyway, that's just my opinion. Let's go on. Where did I start? I'm sorry, let me just go back. Lekach haya Korach mekana bi'aron shahaya kohen gadol. So therefore, we were just mentioning they have to be on the same level, and this is why the Korach had such a jealousy of Aaron, because he actually had these same character traits. We discussed the idea you can have character traits that are good or for bad. Just like Hashem is a jealous God, jealousy is not always bad. Like in marriage, if you're not jealous about your wife or your spouse, that's a problem. Indifference is not good for a relationship. There has to be real love. And that love can generate a healthy jealousy. But also, we know, it can create an unhealthy jealousy. It can. So, that Korach had the same character traits that we're about to discuss that Aaron had. He was on the same level, right? And that is the following. It says in Pirkei Avot, chapter 5, Mishnah 17, you'll find this... And on number 17. Oh, I didn't do it right. It's number what? 7. That's what I meant to write. Okay, look at number 7. Any dispute that is for the sake of heaven, kol machlokus, shi l'shem shemayim, any machlokus that's for the sake of, we'll have to discuss what it is, but for the sake of God, not for my sake. I'm not trying to win the battle. Soifel is kayem. In the end, that machlokus somehow continues to exist, but it's not a bad thing. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. The kol machlokus she'ein l'shem shemayim, that's the bad one, because it's for self-aggrandizement. You're somehow trying to pump yourself up, as we'll see. It's about you, not about finding and getting to the truth. It's not for the sake of heaven. Ein soifel is kayem. Is kayamim. It won't have existence, long-term existence. And the example given is Kamo Machlokas Korach Shaloshim Shemayim. For some reason, Korach, you had two people. Obviously, Moshe was L'Shem Shemayim, but Korach was not. So we'll have to understand that, because we're still talking about it today. There's no argument anymore, but we're talking about it. So we'll have to find out what that means as well. And I think the Yakar has a really fascinating idea. He begins with the last paragraph on Kuf Mem Chet. Yesh Yiboneh. We need to concentrate and really think about what the idea here is. Medua hiskir lashon maklokus. That's the word used. We all saw in Rashi that Ankel is called pluta. Pluta means a dispute, a division. But Chazal do not use the word pluta. They don't use the word riv. In modern Hebrew, a riv is a fight, right? A fight. Or a pluta is a division. Chazal use the word maklokus, lo lashon riv, or lo pluta. Al kain. Therefore, we need to concentrate. What does the word makloket mean or symbolize? Obviously, it means to divide. Lechalek is to divide. Nira lefarish. Okay, nira lefarish. Therefore, it seems we can explain al derech amru Chazal, the way Chazal say in Vayikra Rabbi, that's number 9 on the source sheet, 26:9. There's a pasuk in Leviticus 21:10. If you look at that verse, number 8 first, it says, and the Kohen who is elevated above his brothers. So in Hebrew, Vahakohen Hagadol Me'achav. So usually we're used to hearing the word Kohen Gadol. The word Gadol is talking about his position. Here, I'm not sure the terminology, but it's Hagadol. The Kohen is Hagadol. He is bigger, he's more elevated, but the letter He. So he's going to be bigger in 5 things. The Kohen, who's the Kohen Gadol, is greater than all the other Kohanim in 5 things. And I think the Kli Yakar doesn't mention it, but I think that's what he means, especially because it says Ha Gadol. But it's Vayikra Rabbah. It says in number 9. What's written after the statement, the priest who's greater than his brothers? Why is he called the high priest? It doesn't say he's the high priest. It says he's Kohen Hagadol Me'achav. He's greater than his brothers. Again, with the Hey, because of 5 matters. There's 5 things that he's greater than all the other. In other words, whoever's going to choose him is going to choose him because he's greater in these 5 things. He's greater in Chachma, wisdom. He's greater in Korach, strength. He's greater in Noi, some kind of beauty. He's greater v'oisher, somehow in wealth. And he's greater in kavod. I don't know why they translate his years, but I do understand why. But for honor, for some reason, obviously, the older you are, the more honor we would give you. And I'd like to read this midrash. What does it mean in beauty? It means he's prettier, he's fairer, he's more handsome. Huh? What about power? He's actually physically strong. You saw what Aaron did. He waved. He literally picked up 22,000, one at a time, of course. That's a lot. We had a Kohen this morning who was raising his hands, and the Chazan was singing. And this guy's not used to holding his hands up so long, except for Yom Kippur or something. Anyway, I don't want to embarrass anybody here, but it was quite funny afterwards when the Kohen said, I had to raise my hand for so long. But anyway, the Kohen Gadol is very strong. He waved, physically lifted up, and moved like a lulav, 3 times to the right, 3 times behind him. Each Levi, 22,000 of them. So obviously the Kohen has to be very strong. And also wealth. Interestingly, that if he's not wealthy, all the other priests are going to help him become wealthy. There was an incident involving Pinchas, the stonemason. They appointed him high priest. He was just a lowly worker. And what did they do? You hear this? What did they do? Don't leave. Don't leave. Listen to this. They took gold and threw it into the quarry. So when he was hitting there, doing his work as the stonemason, he became rich because the fellow Kohanim helped him become rich by throwing gold into the quarry. Okay, let's continue. The last thing we read was that this midrash. It's the last 3 lines on page Kuf Mem Ches. That he was greater than his brothers with these 5 things: Noi, Koach, Oisher, Chachma, and Kavod. V'chamisha ma'alot elu, and these 5 attributes, these 5 qualities, kolalim kolamalos, they include all the other good things you can imagine. V'aleihem hayu mishorim Shlomo v'Dovid b'shir hamalos, and regarding these attributes, King David and King Solomon actually put into Psalms. Even though all the good qualities, these 5, it said, not just included all the others, these were the top notch. These were the best qualities that a Kohen Gadol should have. Amnam. Behem halos elu yesh drachim. There's a way to think about it. There's a path to either explain it or even to acquire them. But he says, ki hanoi, this concept called beauty. Mitzad haTorah. It's not the physical beauty. It's the beauty of doing Torah and mitzvahs and doing them in a beautiful way. Zeh keli v'yanvehu. Right? When you have a certain amount of money and you can buy tzitzis, okay? So you have a gamut of what you're willing to spend. It could be spend a little bit more, go on the high end and buy the nicer tzitzis, or tefillin, or Sefer Torah, or whatever it is, as we can actually see here. It's look in number 10. Look in number 10 on the source sheet in Gemara Shabbos 133b. What does this mean? Zeh keli v'yanvehu. Even though we would normally translate the anvehu perhaps as this is my God and I will build him a house, right? Naveh is referring to a Beis HaMikdash, referring to a dwelling. That's true. But it also means I will glorify him, I will elevate him and glorify him, I'll make him beautiful. The rest of the verse is also interesting, right? Elohai aviv ramenahu, right? This Lord is my father and I will raise him up. So the sages interpret the first part, right? Zeh keli v'yanvehu, as noi, navoi, right? You look at the word noi is part of the root. So beautify yourself before God in mitzvahs. Even if you fulfill a mitzvah by performing it simply, which is fine, it's nevertheless proper to perform the mitzvah, like we say, mahader, mahadrin, more beautifully, as beautiful as possible. Make yourself a beautiful sukkah, a beautiful lulav, a beautiful shofar, beautiful ritual fringes, which we're talking about, right? Beautiful Torah scroll, right? Write it with beautiful ink, especially God's name. Use a nice quill, a beautiful quill, and pay an expert scribe, and put beautiful silk fabric around the Sefer Torah. Whatever we do, that's what it means. Zeh keli v'yanvehu, I'm going to beautify the mitzvahs. So there's something you can do. And that's what he says. L'fanav b'mitzvahs. Wenoi amiti. This would really be the true aspect of beauty, and you would be doing it l'shem shamayim. What about Korach? Korach, that's power, oishers, wealth, and kavod. It's going to be the same way. If we look in Pirkei Avos, chapter 4, Mishnah Aleph, that's number 12 on the source sheet. Ben Zoma would say, right, we all know this, who is wise? Someone who learns from every man. There's a pasuk in Psalms 119:99. From all my teachers I have grown wise. Everyone's your teacher. The guy walking down the street. I meet you for the first time. You have something to share? I want to learn. Learn from every man. Who's strong? Someone who overcomes his own inclinations. As we know, it says in Proverbs 16:32, better one who is slow to anger than one who, with might, one who rules his spirit than the captor of a city. That's who is, as we say, is strong. Overcoming your evil inclination. Who's rich? Someone who is satisfied with his lot, right? B'sameach b'chelko. Okay? It says in Psalms 128:2, if you eat the toil of your hands, fortunate are you and good is to you. Okay, honorable. Who's honorable? This is, I think, very important. What is, because we're going to see, honorable is actually going to be, I'm looking for the word, transformed into the word anav. Who is humble? We're going to see humble is in the list. Not in this list, but it's exchanged. Okay, so honorable. Who's honorable? The one who honors his fellows. It's amazing. You give honor. Like, I'm always worried about you and your honor. Then, honor will chase you. You'll become honored. That's what it means to be honorable, to honor others. And then it'll come back to you. I think it's a very important lesson. I mean, I'm trying to incorporate it because I have to be more sensitive to people around me and honor them. Okay, so here we are where we left off. We just read Shabbos, Kuf Lamed Gimel, Zeh Keli V'Yanvehu, and Lifnah B'Mitzvahs. That means to beautify yourself before in doing mitzvahs. And then we said that's the real true act of doing things l'shem shamayim. And then we quoted the other things. And here's the Mishnah Perkei Avot in Hebrew. Ezu gibor, who's considered strong? The one who's koithesh yitzro. That's the one who overcame his inclination. And who's a chacham? Halomed mikol adam. Someone who learns from everybody. And who's mechubad? The one is mechabed es habriot, who honors others. V'derek zeh heim l'shem shamayim. This is done for the sake of heaven. And he says, so too with chachma. Yesh chachma toiva. What is the good wisdom? What is using wisdom for good? That's using it for Torah and mitzvahs. And then your chachma is being done l'shem shamayim, if you're using it for God. But there's also a bad type of chachma. The yesh chachma ra. And in Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah chapter 4, verse 22, where is that on the source sheet? Number 13. This is hard to say, but this is the rebuke that the prophet gives. For my people are foolish, they know me not. They are foolish children, they have no understanding. But these are the words. They are wise to do evil. See, even wisdom can be used in the negative sense. And we're going to see the Kli Yakar explain these 5 traits can be used to the left or to the right. And I'm emphasizing the foolish ones, the evil ones, are who use these to the left. And the smart ones who are doing it for the God's sake and for the right reasons and are praiseworthy are the ones who do it on the right, to the right. And it's not just the right side, but it's correct. Right is correct. Okay, so we got done saying, Yesh Chachma Ra. There's actually a type of Chachma, wisdom, that's not good. And we read the Pasuk, Chachamim Heim L'Ra. Avomishi Yesh Biyado 5 Ma'alo Yiselu. But someone who has these 5 positive character traits, meaning they have them, but they're not using them positively, Elu outside small. They're using them for the negative. Again, I'm using the word left as negative. Hanoi litor hadrat panim. He's using this beauty in a physical, beautiful sense. What about chachma? Beinyanim hagufanit. He's using the wisdom he has just for physical. I don't know what you would call it. Just for the physical sake, nothing spiritually involved. What about osher? Obviously, that's money. He's not using his money properly. And stam kavod shnogim bo kavod. Basically, he's expecting other people to give him honor. And what about koach? That's power. Lit kaber al zuato. They overpower other people. It could be turned into abuse, but it's overpowering others. Harehem shalo l'shem shamayim. This is not used for the sake of heaven. Ubechamisha malos elu. Korach. So Korach had these 5 attributes. There's no question he had them. He wasn't using them for the good. He was using them lo l'shem shamayim. L'zemoyer lashon machloket. Now look at the letters. Mem, chet, lamed, kuf, taf. Machloket. Shu nocherkan, again, Elisha used the word moniker, as the mem is for mammon, money. Chet is for chachma. Now the lamed we never saw before, the word lashon. But wait till you how he understands the lamed of lashon as koach. We will see that. So lamed for makloket, and kuma, which is stature. We'll think of that as kavod, and toar, which is beauty. So you have the word makloket reminds you of all these 5 attributes. Hare chamisha malos shehem be'etzem chamisha malos hashayachin l'kohen gadol. That these 5 attributes, in essence, those are the 5 attributes we mentioned relate to the high priest. And here they go. Aleph, mammon, osher. The mem, right, we said is money because he needs to be rich. We saw what they did for Pinchas, the stonemason. They made sure that he was rich. Can't have a Kohen Gadol who's poor. So what are you going to do? Not appoint him? He's the best guy for the job. Let's make him rich. Chachma, that's connected the Chachma that we mentioned earlier, using it for Torah and mitzvahs. What about Toar, beauty? That's connected Noi, right? That's simple. Kuma. Kuma really means height, but it means stature, like elevation, like where you're holding. I was thinking about this guy who used to be the head of the FBI under a different administration. I think his name started with a C. And he was really tall. I mean, he was one of the dopiest. He was one of the dopiest guys I ever met. But because he was tall, that's probably how he got such a good high-level position.
Yeah.
Okay? He's, being around a 7-foot guy is kind of scary, right? That was his name. That is his name. Anyway, what about kuma? That's stature or height. Keneged a kavod. You're going to give this guy kavod. You're going to stand up for him, right? Because that's the kavod balei koma. That's what we do. We stand up for people with stature. Or maybe it's ramaz leish nichbad hakol kamim lefanav. Or perhaps it's just for someone who's very honorable, and we stand up for him when he comes in the room. Okay, what about lashon? I said that was a little bit difficult because we never saw a lamed before in terms of lashon. How does the tongue have to do with power? The answer is very simply, look in, it's in Proverbs 18:21. But the Yakar says it's Keneged Gevura Shekol Iker Gevuras Adam Balashon. The power of a person is in his tongue, right? We know this about the Jewish people, that our weapon of war, right? It's a pipiot. It's a double-edged sword. Pipiot is like two mouths. We use our mouth for Torah and we use our mouth for prayer, right? The power is in the mouth, but it can be used positively. And unfortunately, at the same time, we all know we've been victims and we've been perpetrators. We have. I mean, I should speak for myself. Anyway, in Proverbs chapter 18:21, which is number 15 on the source sheet, death and life are in the hand of the tongue. I'm sure you all heard that before. Mavis v'chayim biyad lashon. I mean, there's no question about that. And if you look into Tehillim, chapter 12, verse 5, which should be the next thing on the source sheet, with our tongue we will overpower. There's some power. Again, the word gvor is related to the tongue. Nagbir, right? This idea of this power of the tongue. So the Yakar continues, and he says, Chamisha malos elu tzrichim liot bekol adam, right? That harotza lahachnis rosha b'maklokas. Anybody who's interested in fighting, they have these 5 character traits. Doesn't mean they're all for bad, but they're using them in a very negative sense. Kamo Korach, just like Korach, shalachach atzmo b'maklokes mitzad chamisha malos shayubo chashayachin l'kohen gadol. That he took himself into this maklokes because he had these 5 traits that were also similar on the same level. We said you have to be on the same level as the other guy that the Kohen Gadol had. L'chach erur ka'alakud, and therefore he made a claim, right? He complained about this position. Amnam etzlo lo ayu chamisha dvarim elu l'shem shamayim. He had these things, but he wasn't using them for good. It wasn't for the sake of heaven. Rak shelo l'shem shamayim. Like we already mentioned, it was used in a negative sense for himself. V'yidua she'etzom mi shehem shelo l'shem shamayim chamisha malus elu as enam miskayam biyado. Remember we said that he's going to be taken away from the world. He's removed from the world. That's what it means, enam miskayim. Not that it's the maklokas continues forever, but that the person who's doing this ceases to exist. His existence ends, as it says. It's well known by someone who's not doing it for the sake of heaven, and he has these 5 character traits. Einan miskayamim biyado v'sof she'avdu miyado. That he himself, he will be lost. The attributes obviously will be lost. He will, because the attributes are within him, and those are the 5 malos. These 5 malos he will lose. He will lose them, and he basically is taken out from the world. As we saw again in Pirkei Avot, chapter 5, Mishnah 17, Kol maklokas shelo l'shem shamayim, any maklokas which is not for the sake of heaven, ein soif l'skayim biyado, it will not have any existence. It will cease to be, just like these traits in the person and the person themselves. These 5 ma'alois, these 5 character traits, Nirmazim b'milat maklokis. We already saw how the letters of maklokis hint to these different ideas. Kamo Korach hayubo heimalos. He had these 5. V'haya poinel etzad small, but he went to the dark side. Interesting. What is Shin Mem Aleph Lamed? That's a name for the devil. One of the Satan has many names. One is Samech Mem. We call him the Samech Mem. If you think about it, this is a side point Yakar mentions with the wrestling. There was with Yaakov and the angel of Esav. Okay? And he wanted to know his name, whatever, but this was, according to Rashi, the archangel of Esav. Okay, Yaakov was wrestling with the archangel of Esav. His name is Samech Mem Aleph Lamed. So the word, why did it use the word wrestling? It uses the word avak, right? That means dust. So when people wrestle, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but usually a lot of dust rises up, right? You're fighting, a lot of dust. So the idea is that Samech Mem also represents blindness, right? Asuma. So the goal of the Samech Mem is to blind you to El. Samech Mem, Aleph Lamed. It wants to blind you to the truth, to El, to God. Okay? That's just a side point. Let me finish. We're almost done. Hang in there, and then I'll take your questions. So the last thing he says was Litzad small, which is interesting. It's why is the left side, right? The dark side, as I mentioned. Shalom l'shem shamayim, not for the sake of heaven. Lachach nevadhu, therefore he is lost, or it is lost. The kol malato lo amdu, and all of the good attributes that he acquired, they will not stand. But rather, what will happen? Ki Hashem had the fame. Hashem will push him away. Doithi lechach hiskiru lashon maklokus. Now we understand the expression, what maklokus means. That it hints, right? It's the 5 letters. It hints to these 5 things. Amnam heim al shnei chalakim yesh chalak chelek shu l'shem shamayim. There's 2 sides to it. There's 2 aspects of it. That either it's l'shem shamayim or it's not l'shem shamayim. It's either to the left or to the right. Yesh chelek shein l'shem shamayim kederech sheskarnu, like we said before, and that's the lashon of maklokus, which is to separate and divide. It could be used for good, could be used for bad. Okay, so we're on the bottom part of Kuf Mem Tet, 149. Gam nirmaz b'lashon makloket. There's also another hint in the word makloket. Because anybody that has these 5 character traits, az mitzidam mitgaeh, they have a certain pride. Pride is not always good. V'choylek al kol srara, and they're going to try to undermine, they're going to divide themselves, they're going to argue with the authority, with the leadership. Sharoa bizulato, that they see the others. V'gormim kol riv v'naga. This is actually causing more division, more fighting, and more plagues, more negative consequences for the Jewish people. Now, in order to testify, recognize these 5 traits, that was within Korach and his company, the pasuk says, look in number 16:2, it's number 18 on the source sheet. They confronted Moses together, the 250 men of the children of Israel. What does the Torah describe them as? As Nesiei Eda, chieftains or leaders of the congregation. Kurei Moed, representatives of the assembly. Anshe Shem. These are like 3 phrases that describe what they were, and they are somehow related to some of the qualities we discussed, but to the left side, right, to the negative. Ramaz l'chamisha malos elu. So this phrase hints to the actual 5 different traits that we say exist with the Kohen Gadol. Noi, beauty. Oisher, power, money, wealth. Korach, strength. Chachma, wisdom, and honor. And how are they described? So the first, let's say Nisieh, right? That means like the representatives. That's the leadership. That remez lekavod, of course, that hints to the honor that we described. Shakol mechabdim u'min nasim osam, right? This is basically they have been elevated to a position of what did I write here? Mechabdim u'min nasim osam linhok, to guide and to direct the people, to linhog bam kavod, to that people will honor them. That's the position they're in. Like it says in Proverbs chapter 30, verse 32. Now, sometimes the Kliyakar just brings verses for text proof. He just wants to show you, but it could be there's some meaning behind it. I don't want to spend too much time on the meaning, but if you look, it says in number 19, 30, verse 32 of Proverbs, if you have been put to shame, you will be in your ascendancy. So this idea, hitnasus, is ascendancy. It's talking about an honorable position because there's no shame. If you were a shameful person, like a miskain, there's no shame, right? The people who dressed a certain way, and there's nothing they can do that brings any more shame than the state they're already in. It's only someone who's in a leadership position that the higher you are, God forbid, the harder you fall or the further you fall. So I think that's just a text proof regarding what the word vitnasut means, to be in an honorable position. What about the word Ada? So Ada, we call the the tabernacle. What are you looking for? Oh, and it's called, what is the tabernacle? It's called Ohel Moed. Ohel Moed. It's a tent of testimony, but it's a tent of meeting, right? A vad is where everyone gets together. So who gets together on the city council? The leaders of the city, right? You have a city council. Listen to what he says. What's Ada? Ada is lekoach shayu baligvura. It's referring to people of power. It has to do with power. That each one of these people, the 253, each person had the power of 10 people. That's how powerful each one was. And what do we also know about the word Ada? It means a minimum of 10, right? A minion needs a minimum of 10. And that's what he's saying here. He says, it means you were parallel, or minimally parallel to 10 men. Like it says in Gemara Brachos, it says, Ein Eda pachot miyud. You don't have an Eda less than 10. These 10 spies, right, last week, they were called an Eda. And that's how we know that an Eda is not less than 10. What about the word Korea? So that hints to Noi. And there's a text proof, the word Zayit, the pasuk in Jeremiah 11:15, as Zayit Ranan, Yofe Pritoar, Korah. See the word Korah there, Hashem Shemecha. Okay, if you look at it in the Hebrew, you have the word Korah and Toar, or Yofe Toar, in the same pasuk. What about Moed? That remez la'oisher, that hints to a wealth. Shekak derech liot bayet vad. Like in other words, when you have a group of people who are making the decisions, the etzel anshe ha'oisher v'rabim mashkimim lipatach, like liftoach, to develop. Like Hever Lepituach. So these people are the developers. These people are the city council. They're the ones that are investing. They're the rich guys. And that's what the word Moed is based on, the word Vad. Am I right? Okay. And what do we know about those people that have money? It says in Mishlei 14:20, it says over there, number 22, right? Rich people have all the friends, right? The poor man is hated even by his friend, but the friends of the rich are many. They usher Rabbi, right? The rich, right? You buy your friends, right? So they follow the money. People follow the money. What about the words anshe shem? Right? It hints l'chachma shemitzad chachma. This hints to the people who are wise, because mitzad chachma adam maniach shem tov. Right, Dovid? I remember you used to walk around and say this pasuk all the time, right? Tov shem shem tov. Right? A good name is better than a good oil. So basically, what is the idea of chachma? That a wise person wants to leave behind, it could be a legacy, but he wants to leave behind after him for generations by perhaps writing books, writing memoirs, writing his wisdom so other people can follow, having children. But that's what he says. He says, Koisvim chachma so al sefer, v'yoto Hashem mishubach Shlomo bi'amru. That's what Shlomo meant when he said, a good name is better than good oil. B'fishakol hamalos elu hayu bo, that all these good qualities Korach had, but he didn't use them for good, right? But he said, Kol ki kol ha'eda kulam kedoshim b'tochem Hashem. Look in Numbers chapter 16:3. He was saying everybody has a holiness to them, and God is dwelling with them. So what was he really saying? Wait till you hear this. He was saying that the whole Jewish people have these 5 qualities. We all have them. Are we using them for good or bad? That's the question. But we had them. Okay, listen to what he says. Right? That the whole people, they're all holy and God dwells in them. And there's a statement in Gemara Shabbos, Tzarech Bet Amid Aleph, that God will only rest on people that have these qualities. Okay? By the way, that list talks about a Nava. Okay? So a Nava is replaced perhaps with Korach, I'm not sure. Gibor is there. So he says like this. Let's look at it. We said it's in number 25. Am I right? The very last line. In number 25, the divine presence only rests upon a person who's wise, mighty, wealthy, and we said kuma, tall. But there's only 4 here. Wait till you see. Anav is going to be listed. Anav is very important. Okay. So we just read in the Hebrew, Ein Kadosh Baruch Hu Mishra Shkinato El Al Chacham Gibor Vasher. Now, Umeacher Shebetochem Hashem, after the fact that God did dwell with the Jewish people, Bivadai Kol Elu Hamalos, then certainly all these character traits that they had in them, just like Aaron had. It is true. There is a truth to what Korach was saying. Hashem was dwelling with us, so we all had these traits. Im Kain, if that's true, Maduit Titnasu Al Kahal Hashem. Then what was the complaint that Korach had? Why are you appointing yourself? Why are you raising yourself above everyone else? We're all the same. We're all equal. Al Kahal Hashem Mitzad Eza Yitaron Titnasu. That you're somehow think you're greater than everyone else, that you're putting yourself above everyone else. Moses heard this and he fell on his face. The pasuk says he fell on his face. What does fall on your face do? It's like you're saying, I'm humble, I'm low, I submit. That was Moses was trying to tell him, that's what you're missing, Korach. You might have those 5 traits, but you're missing this one very important trait, and that's listed. That's listed in that Mishnah in Pirkei Avot as well, in the Gemara in Shabbos. So that's what he says by saying, V'yishma Moshe, Moses heard, V'yipol al panav, he fell on his face. Ramos lehem, he was hinting to them, Moshe was hinting to them, B'zeh shebachar kadosh baruch hu behem. That's why God chose them. It could be he's talking about the whole Jewish people, he could be talking about just him and Aaron. Okay, but this is why God chose them. Lo mitzad hamalos elu, not because of these particular traits, levad, alone, elarak mitzad anava, because of this very important trait called humility. Zeramaz lehem nefila zu, he was hinting to them through this falling on his face, because the nefila panehem moira al hachna'ah shu nichna b'fnei kol adam. He's showing them you have to be humble, you have to be submissive before everybody. Umin hana'alavim v'lo min ha'olvim. That it's better to be amongst the offended than be amongst the offenders. Remember, back in the day in Eshet Torah, there was a certain father who was very upset that his kid was becoming religious. And he was a Holocaust survivor. And he came to Eshet Torah, to the door, and he wouldn't walk in. He said, I'm not walking in, but I want my son to leave. I want him to come. I want to talk to him. I traveled all this way. And I believe it was Rabbi Mati Berger who had a conversation with him at the doorway. And however it went, there was one line that Rabbi Berger says to him, you were in the Holocaust. If you had to do it all over again, would you choose to be a victim or a Nazi? And he said, I'd rather be the victim. There's no way, I don't know what words to express, in this world that I'd ever be a Nazi. So it's better to be the offended one, that's the humility, than be the offender. That's why Moses fell on his face to show. And there is a pasuk in Tehillim 69:8, number 26. So as we mentioned in Psalm 69:8, and it's number 26, for I have borne humiliation because of you, disgrace has covered my face. I think again he's using this just as a text proof that there's a connection there with these ideas, but it could be if you look at it deeper, you'll discover other things. Now this is a very important piece he says here. Chazal tell us in Gemara Chulin 89a. Now, if you think, who's humbler? Is that a word? Who's most humble? Yeah. Abraham or Moshe? So you would have thought who? Moshe. Well, it does say in the Torah, he's the most humblest of all. But think about it. Abraham says, I am but just dust and ashes. Right? Anochi offer ve'efer. But that means I'm something. If I can claim to be dust and ashes, I am something. Although how small it is pretty small. Whereas Moses says about him and Aaron, we are nothing. He says, Nachnu ma. What are we? We're not even nothing. We don't even know what we are. Listen how insignificant we are. Nachnu ma. What are we? So that's what the Gemara in Chulin says. Godel mashnemar b'Moshe v'Aaron. Greater is what was said by Moses and Aaron, mimashnemar b'Avram, than what was said by Avram. Dilu be'Avram, whereas Avram, it's written in Genesis chapter 18, verse 27. Anochi offer ve'efer, I am but dust and ashes. By Moses and Aaron, it says v'nachnu ma. In Exodus chapter 16:7, Kavar biyarnu maimer zeh b'shar midos. In another chapter, another book, Yakar discusses this further in his Sefer, that Moses was hinting to Korach, right, by the falling of the face and everything else. The over zeh, it says that Ein Kadosh Baruch Hu mishra shkinato ella. God will not rest his what? This is Gemara Shabbos. His presence, and here you have the rest of it. A chacham, a gibor, an oisher, and a anava. Someone who's an anav. Someone who's humble. The kol b'Moshe, kulam b'Moshe. Moses had them all. He was the most humble of all. Nimsha shebachar bo mitzad anava. That's why Moses was chosen, because of his humility. Aval b'Korach ve'edato, but b'Korach in his group, afal pishayu behem kol malos elu, even though they had those 5 ingredients, but it had to be mixed with another, otherwise you're going to the left. Therefore, lo bachar behem Hashem. Therefore, God did not choose them. Lefishalo achuz b'midas anava. They didn't grasp, they didn't seize the moment to take this most important trait, such as anava. V'radfu acher asrara. But what did they do instead? They chased after leadership, appointments, authority. Hafach mima shahaya Moshe. It's the opposite of what Moses, mitchila boirach minasrara, Moses ran away. I understand when he was growing up in the palace, he ran away. He could have been the second Pharaoh. But later on, when God says, I want you to lead the Jewish people, he says, I'm not that talented. You got the wrong guy. I have I have a speech impediment. It says like this, Lo ish dvarim anochi, says in Exodus chapter 4:10, which you'll see in number 30, he says, I am not a man of words. I have no charisma, and I cannot speak. I'm the wrong guy. I think this is a good place to stop. I just think this is very important that we're learning. Believe me, this goes on for pages. We're just scratching the surface. The Vilna Gaon says the purpose of life is tikkun hamidos. Everyone speaks about it, right? Actually, the Rambam, interestingly enough, says the purpose of life is to reach prophecy, to reach the level of such intimate knowledge of God. But he says the only way to do that is to work on your midos. So really, there's no contradiction here. Work on your midos. This is something that I battle I'm going to say every day, but every moment of my day, right? And Bezrat Hashem, with groups like this, right, where we get and learn Torah, because Torah is the instruction manual for life. It's there to instruct us how we have relationships with God, with other people, I'm going to say, but most importantly, ourselves. And Bezrat Hashem, I wish everyone Hatzlacha in this coming new month, Chodesh Tov, number 1. Number 2, have a great Shabbos, and always say have a great life. And we have a new page that was turned recently in the global political situation, and we can have a little bit of a breath of fresh air, in other words, we can get a good night's sleep on one hand, but we cannot turn our backs. There's a machlokas, who's going to win the war? And I'm serious, it's some say it's Persia. I'm talking about in the Talmud and in the mystical writings. Some say it's going to be Esav. We don't know.
What war do you mean?
The final war.
This is not broken.
I didn't say. Okay, so a lot of people comment, and it's not so simple what the answer is. Okay, it's not this. So we have to pray that we will survive. So I encourage everyone to go to Surah Shlishit if you want to come to us, because Surah Shlishit will help God. Shh. 1 second. Surah Shlishit will help you, protect you against whatever's coming. I promise you. Go to Surah, and we have every week at Yiboneh. Come and join us. With that, have a great life. Kol Tuv.